Hi guys, it's Momma Eadie. And if you like this video, please click like. And if you like to see more of my videos, please click subscribe. I love you guys. Hi everybody, it's Momma Eadie. And I've had a lot of friends in these groups at Facebook losing their fur babies. And I am deeply sorry for every one of your losses. But today I want to talk about how you can possibly help yourself get over it. Sometimes you'll never get over it, but to, hang in there and not fall apart. The first thing I do is try to find some kind of chocolate. Eat something that comforts you. Don't worry about the pounds, and just enjoy it. And because grief does use a lot of fuel, and you need to try and eat something, whether it's soup, chocolate, ice cream, whatever is your favorite comfort food. And be sure and cry as much as you want, whenever you feel like it. Take the day off from work if you have to. If you can spend even one day crying whenever you need to, it will make it much easier to face the next day. Find something to do. This may seem kind of, trite, but focusing on a task really does help. Finding a project to complete, a task to accomplish, helps to focus on the world and you that exists outside that hole. It's not a distraction, and it won't make your grief go away. It simply helps you to adjust your perception, to recognize that while grief is part of your life, it isn't the sum total of your life. Sit down and count your blessings. When you lose a loved one, it's hard to focus on anything positive. Unless your circumstances are truly dreadful, however, chances are that your pet was not the only good thing in your life. Remind yourself of some of the good things that you still have by deliberating, reviewing a list of your blessings, such as your family, your remaining pets, your friends, your interests. Review them in your head or write them down. Again, these don't fill the hole, but they do remind you that there is a world outside that hole and that you are still part of it. Reflect on things that don't involve your pet. The loss of your pet may seem to touch every aspect of your life, but in reality, it hasn't changed everything. Reflect on the things that hasn't changed. The things that you did and enjoyed without your pet. When my cat died of cancer, I forced myself to remember that the loss of my pet doesn't take away my ability to enjoy long talks with my husband. It doesn't take away my ability to write. It doesn't take away my ability to read a book. It doesn't take away my ability to create beautiful things. It doesn't take away my ability to enjoy a long walk on the beach or focus on those things that your pet didn't touch while you was alive. Maybe a good big meal. Whatever you enjoy doing without your pet. And you'll be reminded of the things that haven't really been touched by its death. Sometimes cuddling with something furry. Another pet, if you've got a second pet. If you don't, I know this is going to sound silly, but get a stuffed animal, especially when you lay down in your bed, and maybe even put a heat pad around it, to remind you of that feeling and help you with that feeling. And don't be in any hurry to get rid of everything. If the sight of its toys or its bed or, its belongings bothers you, stick them in a bag and set them away. Because later on you might decide to use them as a memorial type thing, and you'll want them and wish that you hadn't gotten rid of them. Be honest with yourself. You've been wounded and you're hurt. You're not weak, crazy, or overly sentimental. to feel this way. Even if you have to put on a brave face. The rest of the world, don't try to fool yourself into thinking that you're not really in that much pain. If you cut your hand off, it wouldn't help to get angry with yourself for bleeding. And losing your pet is like losing a part of yourself. You will hurt, and it will take time to heal. Make a decision to work through grief. You've heard the saying, time heals all wounds. Well, that isn't true. Time doesn't heal all physical wounds. Try cutting off your hand and just ignoring it, and it doesn't heal all emotional wounds either. I've met people whose grief has persisted for years. They're just as upset, just as angry, just as miserable over their loss as they were the day it happened. Such people tend to be consumed with bitterness, obsessing over their loss. And not only do they suffer, but they also bring suffering to everyone around them. Grief is normal, but it is also seductive. It's very tempting to let it take over your mind. Before you do, think about how you feel today and ask yourself if you want to feel exactly the same way in 6 months. Notice I'm not asking you to decide how you want to feel today. Today you may not have much choice any more than you could choose to feel pain if it were physical injury. Your decision about how to manage that injury, however, would be crucial in determining whether a year from now you will be healed or you will be crippled. The same is true of grief. You can't control whether or not you grieve, but you can decide whether or not to let that grief control you. And these 10 survival steps are a good way to survive that it doesn't. And when your pet dies, you want help fast. So understand the feelings you're going through and find ways to ease the pain. Say goodbye with memorials, tributes, and other coping strategies. I always like to make a headstone and put it out there in the yard for them. It just feels like that's something I can do for them. Help your children and other family members deal with the grief. Deal with people who just don't understand. Help surviving pets cope with the loss of a missing companion. I mean, they get sad too. Come to terms with the guilt we so often feel when a pet dies. I, for one, have felt really guilty about Shadow dying in so much pain. But I think about it and I think it's not my guilt. It's the veterinarian's guilt for misinterpreting everything about him. We tried to tell her, and she wouldn't listen. So it's not my guilt. Help surviving pets cope. Well, I saw that. Handle the agonizing decision of euthanization. That's a hard one, and there's just sometimes you got to do it. I mean, when your animal is in pain, it is very difficult. Choose the best and most comforting final resting place for your pet. Determine when and how to bring a new companion into your home. I myself like to get a new one pretty quickly. Now this time with Shadow I haven't, because I've already got 4, but in most cases I get another one. Improve your chances of recovering a lost or stolen pet. Help a friend cope with loss. That's another thing. Talk to a friend that understands. Maybe it's somebody on social media that has lost a baby. Talk to them, because they will sympathize with you and they understand your pain. Some of your family members are going to laugh at you and say, that's just a dog. It's not just a dog. It's a family member. So please, don't feel guilty for crying, for feeling sad. Just try to do things to make your grief a little easier. I love you guys. I love my fur babies. And bye-bye!